Justin, good morning. Welcome to This Week at Work. We're happy to have you. You got to tell us a little bit about Bereave and yourself and what Bereave is all about, please.
Sure. Thanks, Phil. Thanks a ton for having us. And Bert, I'm happy to represent the lower age population on that graph today in this call. So Bereave was started because two of our co-founders lost parents prematurely, and going through that experience, not just losing somebody that they loved, but ultimately everything that followed, right? The consumer experience, the work experience, the grief journey, all of those things. They kept talking to each other and saying, hey, like this should feels like it's something that should be better. This is the only thing, the only true thing that impacts everybody, every human being. Why isn't this better? And so they started digging around a little bit and started a company called Bereave. Our mission is to change the way that we experience death. And we do so by helping employers serve up the best possible bereavement experience for their employees when their employees face a loss. And a lot of people that we talk to say, hey, that probably doesn't happen very often. It's a huge misnomer. 1 in 19 American workers will lose a sibling, spouse, child, or parent in any given 12-month period. That is incredibly close loss. That has incredibly close or incredibly impactful.
So I just think about
effects.
that. If I had 100 employees, I mean, I'm going to probably experience, 5 or 6 of those within, did you say 18 months or a year?
In a 12-month period.
12-month period.
Wow.
That's a very high number.
Yeah, that's
I
five
never thought of it
5% of
that
the
way.
workforce. That's
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. I mean, if we had 5% of our workforce experiencing lost time accidents, I think our friend Chib would say, hey, you got to do something about that.
Sure. Sure.
It sounds like
Yeah.
that's what Bereave has set out to do. So tell us a little bit more about what does Bereave do? Is it your traditional
Mhm.
EAP approach? Is it something different than EAP,
Yeah.
employee assistance programs?
Totally. Very different from an EAP. We encourage the use of EAPs when they work well, when they're working well. So we've heard all sorts of different opinions. There's a pretty wide spectrum of usage. But what Bereave does is that we have a software platform, and part of that software platform is based on 4 themes that, through our research and the interviews that we did and the surveys that we did, for people who have experienced loss in the workplace, we built a product around the things that really went well and the things that didn't, so that we can eradicate the bad experiences to the best degree possible, and we can really pull in and inspire people to promote the good experiences. So preparation, we talk about training a lot. Managers don't get trained on much, let alone how to handle these difficult situations. We talk about organization and communication when a loss event does occur. And then ultimately, one of the biggest and most critical moments of somebody losing a loved one is the re-entry into the workforce, right? The re-entry into the office, into that role. They're a completely different person in many cases. In most cases, especially when you lose a sibling, spouse, child, or parent, right? So bringing those people back with grace and understanding, and figuring out how to not just get them back to productivity, because that is a major, major piece to the puzzle for the business, but also how to do it in a way that really enhances the employee experience. Because when this goes well, people say things like, I will bleed that company's colors for the rest of my life, right? I will be an advocate for that company for the rest of my life. When it doesn't go well, we hear the exact opposite. We hear people say things like, I knew then and there that this place wasn't meant for me, and didn't walk the walk that they were talking on their website.
Yeah, I think I may be one of those people that have the intention of walking the walk, but maybe not getting it right. So, I've experienced, I got a few stories I'd love to get some comments around. So, the first thing is true story. Absolute, younger in my career, had an employee who had, a spouse who had passed away. And at that point, I went to my leader. I said, look, she's really struggling. I need help. And all joking aside, leader said, what's really best for somebody in this situation, Phil, I got to tell you from my experience, is just bury them in work. Just bury them in work and get their mind busy and keep their mind off of that,
Yep.
and I thought that was just absolutely craziness.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't take that advice. and I didn't feel like it was good advice, but I'm going to
Sure.
guess you're going to say that's not the right thing to do.
Yeah, I think it might be right. This is where things are so nuanced, right? But allowing that person to really dictate what they need and to be able to express and give the platform to express themselves and how they're feeling. I talked to a company earlier this week who lost or who had an employee who lost a toddler child. Right, his first instinct was get back to work and bury himself in work. Get out of the house, get into the office. I need to be away. Right, I've talked to plenty of people with a very similar experience who had the exact opposite reaction, right? I want nothing to do with work, can't even think about work, keep me away from that place, right?
Right.
So
Right.
so having the wherewithal to think about what does this person need, how should we show up? Do we need to adjust their work schedule? Do we need to adjust their workload? Do we need to adjust how they're evaluated? All of those things should at least be considered. I'm not saying to go change those things, but what I am saying is that you should consider whether or not those things need to happen as part of your bereavement response. When you think about bereavement and work, if I went to, I don't know, your entire membership and said, what are the things that you think about when you think about bereavement at work? Typically, what I would expect to hear is time off. There is some policy somewhere that hasn't been updated in a decade, and EAP,
Yeah.
right? In reality, this is about the employee experience, and they couldn't be more mistaken. Those things are true. However, bereavement is about mental health support. It promotes equity, it promotes inclusion, it furthers retention, it furthers productivity, it ultimately helps define your culture and who you are. And I get it, it's tough to talk about, it's nobody's fault. Society has kind of formed us in this way, yet there is an opportunity here to really dig in and support your teammates, especially because there are many teammates that you have that you probably don't even know are grieving.
No, I think there is a lot of private scenarios, and that just thinks, does this product and your program really
Mm-hmm.
apply to maybe someone who's dealing with like a miscarriage situation, and
Yep.
dealing with that in the same way, and maybe sometimes even more griefful than
Mm-hmm.
you know the loss of an older loved one who you might expect, someday you might lose, but none of us expect to lose a baby.
Totally, totally. And, there are all sorts of loss, right? There are all sorts of things that can cause grief. And our job really is to do two things. One is to equip and empower the business to understand how to move through these situations with their teammates in a human way that helps get them back on track. If that's possible, right? To identify if that's possible and then to help them back. Secondly, it's to be able to supply these resources to people who suffer a loss. One of the biggest things we heard in all of our research from people who suffer a loss is they would say things like, I didn't know where to turn, so I Googled what to do when someone dies, right? You
Right?
can imagine all the ads that you get served from funeral homes in that moment, right?
Oh,
There
I bet.
isn't a
Yeah.
ton that is helpful. So what we've done is we've created very tactical, very practical side of our platform just for people who have either experienced a loss and they need to navigate things because it can take up to 18 months to close an estate. I've actually heard into 3 years in complex situations, but the average is about 18 months. And when they're closing an estate, think about the things they need to do and when they need to do them. Probably between the hours of 9 and 5 when the banks are open and the courts are open and they're working through probate and those types of things, right? So that's going to take away from work. So how can you support those efforts? How can you support the grief that they feel? Their mourning period, right? How can you support those things to make sure that they're getting what they need and work to develop that loyalty and productivity at the same time?
Yeah, I'm watching our chat line here. We have some comment coming in as it relates to being well prepared, really within healthcare
Mm-hmm.
facilities. I'm really curious
Mm-hmm.
what some of our other listeners. I know we have some manufacturers, a lot of manufacturing that listens
Mm-hmm.
to the program, as well as all industries. Really, I'm just curious what
Sure.
some of those businesses who are listening are doing, or how they're prepared beyond the EAP, or if EAP is really the program that you're most prepared with. I know in my experience, that was why we had EAP, one reason
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
from that standpoint. So tell me more
Mm-hmm.
about the program. It's a program where an instructor comes in and leads a class, we dip you
Mm-hmm.
in and you got your training and then we're done? Is it it's
Yeah.
online, it's a combination? Tell us about the program,
It
Justin.
is. It is an online platform, so accessible by web browser. right? We help train managers early on just through self-guided content, although we are going to start doing some live manager training once a month, I believe in July, on things like empathy, understanding grief, having difficult conversations, things that managers typically don't get trained on. So there's a little bit of combination there of self-guided and live training, but there's also a huge software toolkit that helps automate these processes. So HR folks don't need to think about what to do. It's there. They get to think about how to go do these things, and how to show up, how to scale the personal touch, how to deliver the best care and response possible, because everything is listed for you. So this all lives in a software platform that we've built that our customers use. And it's interesting you mentioned the diversity of your membership. We have a school district. We have high-tech software companies. We've got industrial. We've got an equipment company. We've got a trucking company, right? All it really takes is a human approach to your employees. If you are thinking about employee experience, you should be thinking about the things that are non-ceremonious in life. Take Bereave out of it for a second. Think about financial distress and hardship. Think about relationship stress. Think about things like that. Think about just having children, right? I have 2 young children. It's the most stressful
thing about
thing
working with
imagine.
Bert Garland every week.
Right.
I mean, you talk about stress, this guy.
Right.
Well, Justin, one thing I'll say is that, it is all of our listeners know I lost my mom 8 years ago. I lost my dad 2 years ago. And, I really do think this is a neat concept that you've developed here, something that is needed in the workplace. It's amazing because when my parents passed, it was a lot of my coworkers who were there to really support me during that time and kind of did help me take my mind off of their passing to the extent possible and kind of keep me in a routine, which I think allowed me to kind of get through the grieving process a little bit better.
Yeah, totally. Bert, I'm sorry to hear about the loss of your mom and dad. Luxury to have teammates like that for sure.
Yep.
Yeah, Bert's got some great teammates there at Ogletree. I can't say many of them been on the program, and I do think they're just great human beings. But that's what we rely on, because it starts for us within business. It kind of looks like this: we get a phone call, someone's lost someone near and dear to them, and they're upset and they can't come to work, and then we all feel really bad, right? And the first thing that we do in human resources is we sit down and we go, okay, well, we need to notify the company. And then the next question is, well, do they want us to notify their coworkers? Don't they want us to notify their coworkers? Where are they at on the position? We don't know, right? So then we're calling or confirming, you okay if we tell everyone about, this, because your coworkers will want to be sensitive to it. And they say, oh yeah, sure, go ahead and tell them. And then the next question is, what do you say in an email letter to everyone? And that's how you communicate it, by email. And is that even the right way? I'm guessing Bereave helps you walk through that process as well internally.
Totally. And the concepts of considering things that you can do, making sure that you're thinking through these things as the best alignment with your employee experience, the best alignment with your culture, the best alignment with how you want to show up in the world, with best practices, right? Yeah. So making sure that there are some considerations there and not just falling back into a routine.
Hey, our listeners are asking online for the website. Where can they find some information out here, Justin?
Bereave.io is our website. You can reach me at justin@bereave.io. Happy to do anything for your members, Phil. I mean, we can do 30-minute free policy assessments, things like that, just to kind of help move people forward in thinking about this. It is a very important topic. It is a relatively new topic, kind of tacked on to mental health that people are starting to think about, and wellness programs that people are starting to think about. So happy to help your membership where we can at no cost.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, Justin. We will be in discussions about what we can put together. Sure. I want to just say
thank you once again for tuning in to This Week at Work. If you enjoy the show, please share it with your colleagues. Forward our invites. Share the link aimea.org/ This Week at Work, or follow or subscribe wherever you get your news and entertainment, like LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We're everywhere you are. And you can be part of the show. Send your questions and comments anytime to info@thisweek.work. We'll see you next week, 7:30 a.m. Central Time, when we discuss what's happening this week at work.